Desperate to escape, she embraced a stranger. What followed changed their lives forever. Ellie's heart raced as she stepped into the dimly lit diner, the scent of greasy fries and coffee wrapping around her like a warm blanket. Her worn-out shoes shuffled over the creaky floorboards, and with each step, the weight of her worries pressed more heavily on her shoulders. The flickering neon lights above cast a harsh glow on a world that felt all too dark. With 2 jobs and 2 kids, every day felt like a battle against an unseen tide, pulling her further into the depths of despair. But this evening, she sought solace from her crumbling reality. She needed just a moment away from the ongoing threat of eviction, a moment to breathe. At the counter, she slid into a booth, the vinyl cracked but somehow comforting. Her fingers traced the familiar patterns as she ordered a cup of coffee. She glanced around the diner, where a few regulars sat hunched over plates, drowning their sorrows in greasy meals. It was there she spotted him, Luke, a rugged war veteran with hard-set features and scars that told silent stories. He sat alone, nursing a mug and lost in thought. Something in the way he carried himself drew her in. They were both seekers, desperately searching for connection in a world marked by struggle. "Hey," he greeted her, catching her gaze. His eyes, deep and tired, held a flicker of understanding that sent a shiver down her spine. She smiled hesitantly, half expecting judgment for being seen alone, but instead, warmth radiated from his gentle demeanor. As their conversation flowed, Ellie felt a flicker of hope amidst her heaviness. Luke's stories of survival mirrored her own battles, each word resonating with her ache and determination. He didn't see her as a single mother or an eviction risk, but simply as Ellie, a woman deserving of kindness. She felt lighter, her old worries fading against the backdrop of unexpected connection. Could this rugged man help heal the broken pieces of her heart? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let us continue. Days turned into weeks, and small moments spent with Luke became her lifeline. He offered her more than friendship. He sparked in her a longing for a better life. As whispers began to ripple through their town, judgment curdled the air around her like thick fog. The gossipers didn't see the tender growth between them, only the stigma of his past and her struggles. Ellie felt the weight of disapproval pressing her down, but her heart beat louder with each encounter, defying the world outside her tumultuous existence. Then, the ground shook beneath her as her landlord delivered the ultimatum: pay up or pack up. Panic gripped her. How could she protect her children while grappling with this newfound bond? Her place in the tight-knit community felt more precarious than ever as the impending chaos loomed. As murmurs of the town echoed her feelings of inadequacy, her mind raced toward the town hall meeting where she would confront her fears, buoyed by the strength she'd found in Luke. Yet, fear mingled with hope, and as she steeled herself to speak, doubt lingered in her throat. But deep within her heart, she clung to thoughts of love, acceptance, and family. In that charged atmosphere, heading towards an unforeseen reckoning, Ellie knew she stood at the edge of change. Would she embrace her truth, risking everything for the warmth of a love that set her heart ablaze? Or would she retreat, allowing fear to curtail her blossoming future? Silence hung around her like a palpable heaviness, leaving her with one resonating question as she opened her mouth to speak. What would she choose, and how would it change everything she held dear? Ellie stood at the podium, her hands trembling as she gripped the edge, the wood warm under her fingertips. The town hall was packed with familiar faces, neighbors who had known her for years but had never really seen her. The air buzzed with anticipation, the weight of unspoken criticism pressing down like a heavy quilt. "Ladies and gentlemen," her voice cracked, and she took a deep breath, forcing the words out. "I know some of you are concerned about my situation. I'm here to be honest." The words poured out like a flood, raw and unfiltered. "I'm scared. I'm terrified of losing my home, of failing my children. I'm a single mother trying to keep everything together." She glanced at Luke, sitting a few rows back, his expression encouraging yet concerned. His presence was a tether, giving her courage. Still, there were murmurs around the room, some nods of understanding, but too many eyes filled with skepticism. I've been blessed with love from unexpected places, she continued, her heart pounding. Luke has made me feel valued again. So much of my life has been about survival. But now she paused, catching the glimmer in Luke's eyes. With him, there's a spark of hope I didn't think I deserved. A voice from the crowd interrupted, dripping with disdain. What do you think you're doing, Ellie? You think this war hero can save you? You don't know anything about him. He's a broken man. The harshness of the comment cut deep, and Ellie's heart twisted. She had expected it. People rarely welcomed new stories into their lives, especially not ones that challenged old narratives. But still, the word stung. The world may see him as broken, but I see strength. I see someone who fights for his life every day, someone who understands struggle. She didn't want to back down. I'm not ashamed of finding love in the most unlikely place. Yes, I'm afraid, but I want to apologize for trying to build something beautiful. A surprising ripple spread through the audience. Some shifted uncomfortably, while others nodded in appreciation. Maybe they understood, maybe they felt her fight. She took a step forward, letting desperation fuel her resolve. I have 2 kids who look up to me. They deserve to see me fight for love, fight for our future. As she spoke, Ellie felt larger than life, fueled by determination. The rhythm of her heartbeat synced with the pounding of her words. No one is going to define my family or my choices but me. We're all looking for connection, for understanding. So yes, I embrace Luke. I embrace possibility. With that, she took a deep breath, looking out at the faces staring back at her, some skeptical, some surprised. She felt raw and exposed, yet alive in a way she hadn't in a long time. Despite the fear swirling in her chest, she was finding her voice. When her speech came to a close, the room was silent. Ellie stepped away from the podium, feeling like she fought a battle, digging deep to find the strength she thought she had lost. The tension enveloped the crowd. Luke stood up and applauded, his hands clapping above his head. Slowly, others began to join in, a hesitant wave of approval spreading. Ellie's heart swelled. Perhaps this was the beginning of a new chapter, not just for her, but for all of them. But as relief washed over her, another worry crept in. Would the support last? Would the townspeople truly embrace her and her decisions? What would come next as she strived to hold on to the hope she had just kindled? The realization that the hardest battles often follow moments of triumph filled Ellie with an unsettling dread. She stepped down from the podium, heart racing yet fueled with determination. What awaited her as she took on the world, the life she envisioned, tangled with Luke? Would they stand strong against the opinions of others, or would doubt choke out the light they had begun to kindle? The applause faded, but Ellie's heart still raced, echoing the lingering tension in the room. She made her way through the crowd, each step feeling like a tightrope walk. People whispered, casting glances, their eyes shifting between her and Luke. Her stomach twisted. Would they really accept her choice? As she reached Luke, the warmth in his grasp made her remember how alone she felt before. In his presence, she found a flicker of comfort. You were incredible, he said, his voice low and steady. Do you think they'll listen? She whispered, afraid to voice her doubts. Luke met her gaze, his eyes determined. You spoke from your heart, Ellie. That's what matters. You can't control their reactions, but you can control your own story. His words settled over her like a gentle embrace. She wanted to believe him, but as they walked out of the town hall, she spotted a group loitering by the entrance. Their faces wore skepticism, arms crossed tightly. One voice rang out. What makes you think you can just waltz in and change everything? Fear wrapped around her throat. Luke squeezed her hand subtly, urging her forward. Let us not engage, he said softly, but Ellie felt a fire igniting within her. She turned back, forcing herself to stand tall. I'm not trying to change anyone, she said, tone steady. I'm simply trying to live my truth. We all have our journeys, and I'm asking for understanding, not judgment. The small crowd fell silent, uncertainty flickering across their faces. Ellie took a breath. I'm asking for a chance to show that love can heal, even when it feels broken. The moments stretched awkwardly, tension thick in the air. Just as she feared they would turn away, the local baker, Mrs. Thompson, stepped forward. I see your courage, Ellie. It takes guts to stand up like that. We've all struggled. Maybe we haven't experienced the pain you have, but we can empathize. A wave of relief washed over Ellie, but it was still just one voice. More people murmured around her, some critical, others nodding in agreement. Perhaps this was her moment. She realized that not everyone would support her, and that was okay. I just want my kids to grow up knowing they can choose kindness, no matter how tough things get. Maybe love isn't about fixing broken people, Luke added, stepping beside her, his voice cutting through the air. It's about standing together, even when everything seems impossible. One by one, people in the crowd shifted, some even stepping forward to share their stories. Vulnerability cracked open the shell of judgment. Ellie felt an unexpected swell of hope. But as she turned to Luke, her heart heavy with anxiety about the future, a familiar face emerged from the crowd. Mr. Jacobs, a man known for his outspoken opinions. His frown carved deep lines on his face as he moved close. Ellie, he said, his voice low, you think this is going to end well? Love won't fix everything. You're setting yourself up for failure. Her breath hitched at the intimate cutting of his words. Flickers of doubt crept back in, threatening to snuff out the light of hope they had ignited. What if he was right? What if the love they had built was just an illusion waiting to crumble? As the conversations around her buzzed with uncertainty, she gripped Luke's hand tighter, searching for the courage to embrace whatever awaited them. What would it take to convince the town herself that she could truly build a life worth fighting for? But deep down, an unsettling thought formed like a storm on the horizon. What if Mr. Jacobs was only the beginning? With her heart racing, Ellie stood on the edge of a new journey, teetering between hope and despair, ready to face whatever challenges would come next. Would love be strong enough to withstand the scrutiny of those unwilling to change? And as the crowd began to disperse, she knew this was only the start of the battle ahead, one that would test the very foundation of her new life. What awaited would shake her to her core. Ellie felt like a storm had condensed within her, the doubts swirling, the fears crashing like waves. She watched as Mr. Jacobs' frown clung to his face like a shadow, casting a pall over the tentative hope she had begun to cultivate. Just when she thought the tide might turn with Mrs. Thompson's support, his words cut sharper than she expected. Don't let one voice lead you astray, Luke whispered, gently nudging Ellie forward. She knew he was right, but the weight of negative energy tugged at her heels. The chatter became a murmur of chaos, voices flaring from disagreement to quiet acceptance. It was disorienting. Let us get out of here, Luke said, clearly sensing her unease, pulling her away from the lingering crowd. They walked in silence, her heart still pounding in her ears. As they turned the corner, the quiet streets felt both liberating and daunting. Did I do the right thing? Ellie voiced, her question barely above a whisper. Luke stopped, turned to face her. You spoke your truth, Ellie. There was a fierce determination in his voice. That's not something to regret. But deep down, uncertainty pulsed. She couldn't shake the feeling that more was coming. The town was small, and Mr. Jacobs was the most outspoken of many who might disagree. What if they never accept me? She asked, light tears threatening to spill over. He raised her chin gently, his eyes steady. Then we keep moving forward, one step at a time. The two of them found a small coffee shop nearby, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafting into the streets. It looked warm and inviting, a stark contrast to the chill of the evening air. They slipped inside, grateful for the sanctuary as they settled into a corner booth. As she cradled a steaming cup, Ellie felt her body relax, the warmth seeping into her bones. The busy barista whirled around, serving friends chatting over shared stories. A flicker of comfort passed through Ellie at the sight. Maybe it was possible to create this kind of environment for her family. But as she took a sip, her phone buzzed on the table, jolting her back to reality. A text notification. It was a message from her mother. I heard what happened today. Call me. Anxiety clutched at her throat again. She couldn't face her mother's disappointment. Behind every word was the implication that she had failed. Everything okay? Luke asked, noticing the shift in Ellie's demeanor. Just my mom, she's heard about the meeting, Ellie murmured, her voice trembling. What if she thinks I'm making a mistake? Luke reached across the table, his fingers brushing over hers. You're living for you now, not for anyone else. The doorbell jingled as an elderly woman entered, her frail frame barely managing the rush of cold air. Ellie glanced over, only to find the woman's piercing blue eyes fixed on her. The look was unsettling yet familiar, as if she could see right through Ellie. "Dear?" the woman called out, approaching their table. "You were wonderful out there. Keep fighting for your truth." Ellie blinked. "You heard me?" "Yes, child. And your love is more powerful than you think." With a nod, she turned, her presence lingering like the scent of coffee. The encounter hit Ellie with a jolt. Maybe the fight for her truth was bigger than she could grasp. Not long after leaving the shop, as Ellie and Luke strolled towards her home, Ellie felt embers of determination igniting inside her. She kissed Luke lightly, fueled by the warmth of fleeting hope. But the doubts crept back. What awaited her was still a mystery. Would she be able to convince her mother, or would the very roots of her family tree rebel against her growth? The night wore on, but Ellie's heart raced with the promise and fear of tomorrow. Would she find the strength to face her family? Ellie's thoughts tumbled over each other as she and Luke walked down the dimly lit street. The soft crunch of gravel underfoot felt oddly grounding, a stark contrast to the whirlwind of emotions swirling in her mind. Shadows from streetlights danced around them, echoing her uncertainty about what lay ahead. Luke's hand still clasped hers, a solid reminder of her resolve. He squeezed it gently, offering silent encouragement. She could hear the distant hum of laughter from neighboring homes, families gathering around for dinner, sharing stories, things that, once upon a time, felt so ordinary and peaceful. Now, it seemed like a world away. I can't keep ignoring this fear in me," Ellie admitted as they rounded the last corner before her house. "What if she doesn't understand?" Luke stopped again, this time facing the house looming before her like a dark fortress. "Ellie, it's okay to be scared," he reassured her. "But you can't let that fear dictate your life. Your truth matters." Taking a deep breath, she nodded, steeling herself for what was to come. The lights in the living room flickered, casting warm shadows behind curtains. She imagined her mother pacing, worrying, or worse, waiting in silence with that disappointed look Ellie had come to dread. "Let us take a moment," Luke said, pulling her slightly away from the porch. "You don't have to go in just yet." They stood under a tree, its branches stretching out like arms embracing them. Ellie closed her eyes and focused on the tranquility of the moment, listening to the whispers of nature rustling around her. The anxiety plagued her, yes, but there was also something else, a flicker of hope, a surge of potential. "What if we run away?" she joked softly, though the laughter felt hollow. "To another town where no one knows me?" Luke chuckled, but there was a seriousness in his voice when he replied, "Escaping doesn't change who you are, Ellie. You've got to stand your ground, face this head on." With a final squeeze of her hand, Luke stepped back, urging her forward with a nod. "I'll be right here. You don't have to do this alone." The words hung heavy in the air as Ellie approached the front door. Her heart thudded in her chest, an urgent drumbeat racing against the ticking clock. She took a deep breath, placed her hand on the cool doorknob, and let herself in. "Ellie?" Her mother's voice reverberated, tight with strain. "I'm home," Ellie called out, stepping into the dim lighting that hugged the living room. Her mother stood near the window, arms crossed. Those familiar lines of concern etched on her face made Ellie's stomach churn. "We need to talk," her mother said, the weight of the words hanging like a guillotine waiting to fall. Ellie opened her mouth, 100 thoughts jostling for a chance to break free. But the fear from earlier knotted in her throat. As she paused, struggled. The truths she had fought so hard to claim felt caught between her intentions and the looming shadows of fear. "Aren't you going to say anything?" Her mother pressed, her voice sharp yet desperate. "Mom." Before she could gather her thoughts, the phone rang loudly from the kitchen, slicing through the tension. Her mother flinched, staring at the device as if it held the answers they'd been waiting for. Ellie hesitated, a sudden thought dawning on her. "Maybe that's important," she muttered, an unexpected spark of defiance igniting within her. "Maybe we should answer it together." Her mother looked at her, a mix of confusion and relief softening her features as the phone rang again. "Maybe," she began, pulling her gaze from Ellie as she walked slowly toward the kitchen. Ellie followed, her heart pounding louder now. As they entered the kitchen, both women stared at the screen lighting up with a familiar name. No matter what happened next, Ellie knew this moment was a turning point. But what awaited them on the other side of that call? Would it span the distance between their hearts? Or would it threaten to break them apart even further? Ellie and her mother exchanged a quick, charged glance as the name flashed on the screen. It was Aunt Grace, the ever-bubbly source of family stories and warmth, someone both women had missed lately. Ellie felt a flutter of hope. Maybe Aunt Grace could ease the tension that clung thickly in the air. Should we answer? Ellie asked, already feeling the urgency of the moment slip away. Her mother hesitated, the lines of worry softening slightly. Yes, let us see what she wants. With a shaky breath, her mother swiped to answer, putting the call on speaker. Hello? Hey, you two. Aunt Grace's cheerful voice filled the room, momentarily lifting the heavy atmosphere. Ellie could almost picture her aunt's wide smile and bright eyes lighting up the other end of the line. I was just thinking about you both. What is going on? Not much, just getting settled. Ellie's mother replied, her tone a touch more relaxed. Ellie shifted closer, feeling a swell of emotion. She wanted to be part of this conversation, craving any distraction from her own looming fears. Hi, Aunt Grace, she called, her voice steadier than before. Ellie, what a lovely surprise. Her aunt's enthusiasm poured through the speaker. What have you been up to? Ellie opened her mouth to answer, but her thoughts tangled again. She glanced at her mother, who was listening intently, the edge of worry still present but softened by her aunt's lightheartedness. I'm thinking about college choices, Ellie ventured, boldening herself with the fact that this was a harmless topic. But it's a bit stressful. Oh, honey, that is perfectly normal. Aunt Grace reassured. In fact, you should come visit me this weekend. We can do some fun things, maybe even walk around the campus nearby. It'll help you clear your head. Ellie felt a flicker of excitement. Really? That would be amazing. But just as she was caught up in that little spark of joy, she sensed her mother's eyes narrowing. Ellie, do you think that's a good idea? The words hung between them, and Ellie's heart sank. Mom, I don't see why not. I could use a break, especially if it means getting out of this house for a bit. But her mother started, her tone rising defensively. Hold on a second. Aunt Grace interjected, a warm laughter lacing her words. I'm sure Ellie needs her space to explore. You can't keep her in a bubble forever, right? Aunt Grace's lightheartedness was infectious, but Ellie felt the tension from her mother ripple back into the room, darkening it once more. We need to talk about important things first, her mother insisted, eyes fixed on Ellie with an intensity that made her chest tighten. Let us all talk together, then. That's what family is for. Aunt Grace urged, her voice persistent. Julie, you know my door is always open, and I have all the time in the world for you both. Ellie caught the flicker of her mother's resolve wavering. It was just a moment, but it was enough. Okay, her mother relented softly. I suppose we can make time for it. I don't want to hold you back, Ellie. The friendly banter continued, but Ellie felt both excitement and hesitation. They were on the cusp of unraveling the knot that had tied them down. But was this the right path? She wanted to talk about her feelings, her fears, and everything that loomed between them, but here they were, drifting through a different conversation. Before she could lose her nerve again, she glanced at her mother. Can we talk when this call is over? Her mother nodded slowly, the vulnerability in her expression piercing through Ellie's chest like a sudden ache. Absolutely, Aunt Grace said brightly. But don't rush. Enjoy your evening. I'll check in on you both later. As the call ended, silence filled the kitchen again, but it felt different. Lighter, almost hopeful. Ellie's heart raced as she whispered, Mom, about what I wanted to say earlier, but before she could finish, a loud crash echoed from the living room. They both whipped toward the sound, dread pooling low in Ellie's stomach. What was happening now? Would they manage to talk through their fears, or would this new threat tear them apart all over again? Ellie and her mother froze, hearts pounding as the crash reverberated through the house. It sounded like it came from the living room, a place they usually enjoyed filling with laughter and memories. But now, unease unfurled between them like a curtain dropping over a once vibrant stage. Stay here, Ellie's mother whispered, her eyes wide with an urgency that sent a chill racing down Ellie's spine. Mom, I want to help. What if someone's hurt? Ellie's voice was barely a breath, her legs refusing to move. But she was already peering through the doorway, her pulse hammering. Just wait, her mother insisted, but Ellie felt the pull of her own instincts. She took a step forward, Pushing past her mother's protective arms, they moved cautiously into the living room. The sight that greeted them made Ellie's breath hitch in her throat. The coffee table lay on its side, broken glass glinting like tiny shards of danger scattered across the carpet. The family photos that had once graced the table were now scattered, some faces smiling from the floor, frozen in time, a reminder of better days. Ellie, her mother gasped, rushing into the room, fear etched on her face. What happened? Ellie glanced around, searching for the source of the disturbance. Her heart was pounding louder than before, echoing in her ears until it became a drumroll of dread. That's when she noticed a figure standing just on the edge of the darkened room. Who are you? Ellie called out. The silhouette shifted, a young woman emerging from the shadows. She looked around the same age as Ellie, her face a mix of fear and frustration. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Why are you here? Ellie's mother interrupted, her voice sharper than a knife. I'm lost, the girl said, desperation leaking through her words. I just needed a place to hide. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. Ellie's heart raced unpredictably. In the past year, much of her world had felt like a hiding place, an echo chamber of disappointment and miscommunication. Here was someone outside of their little bubble, thrusting their chaos into their lives. How did you even get in? Her mother asked, still tense, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the girl's face. I climbed through the window, the girl stammered, glancing back at the mess she made. I'm really sorry. Ellie felt an inexplicable rush of empathy. Why were you hiding? She asked gently. The stranger hesitated, and for a brief moment, fear flickered in her eyes. I had nowhere else to go. I thought I could escape for a while. Ellie's heart ached. She recognized that feeling all too well. Mom, she said softly, glancing over at her mother. Maybe we should hear her out. Her mother remained tense, the lines of worry etched on her face deepening. But as she met Ellie's hopeful gaze, something shifted. Maybe it was the realization that they weren't the only ones trapped in their own overwhelming fears. Fine, her mother relented, arms crossing tightly over her chest. But we need to know what kind of trouble you might be in. The stranger nodded slowly, her guarded expression softening just a fraction. Thank you. It's just complicated. Ellie's pulse quickened as the girl hesitated, as if she was weighing the risks against the possibility of freedom. Please, I can tell you everything. But first, I need to know if I'm safe here. The tension in the room was palpable. Ellie could feel a moment slipping away, the chance for connection hanging on the edge of a knife. What story lay behind the girl's haunted eyes? Would revealing it help them all find a way out of their own trapped lives? Before she could ask, another crash resonated somewhere deeper in the house. Fear gripped Ellie tightly again, strands of anxiety interwoven, as collective uncertainty loomed over them all. What awaited behind those closed doors, and would they face it together or drift apart again? The air thickened as the echo of the crash reverberated through the house, causing all three girls to jump. Ellie felt a chill creep up her spine, her instincts shouting at her to flee, yet another part of her begged to stay. The damaged coffee table and the stranger in their home seemed to anchor her, a delicate thread woven of uncertainty and connection. Do you hear that? The girl whispered, eyes wide with fear. Her voice trembled, a thin line of panic threading through her tone. Yeah, Ellie breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. Her heart raced with each unexpected sound, its rhythm quickening. What is going on? It's probably just the wind, Ellie's mother said, but her voice carried an unconvincing tremor. No. The girl shook her head rapidly, her dark hair flinging into her eyes. I heard something more, a real crash, something breaking. You don't understand. You need to. Before she could finish, the floorboards creaked ominously, followed by another resounding crash, this time louder, closer. The walls felt as though they were inching in, tightening around them. Stay here, Ellie's mother ordered fiercely, positioning herself between Ellie and the darkened hallway. Fear radiated off her, a protective barrier pushed to its limits. But Ellie felt a surge of courage. No, we can't just stand here. What if it's someone who needs help? She took a step forward, glancing at the stranger. We need to stick together. The girl looked between Ellie and her mother, emotion flickering in her wide eyes. I can't go back out there alone. I have nowhere else to go. Please. Ellie's stomach twisted at the girl's plea, a knot of shared desperation. The girl's vulnerability stung, reminding Ellie of her own unsettled feelings about home. Fine. Together, then, Ellie affirmed, looking to her mother, who wore a frown of conflicted emotions. With reluctance, her mother nodded. If we do this, we do it now. Let us find out what is going on. They moved as a unit, Ellie leading, followed closely by the stranger, with her mother watching their backs. As they edged toward the hallway, sounds filtered through the air, scraping, a thud, and then an eerie silence fell, heavy like a thick fog. The hallway stretched before them, dim and shadowy. Ellie's heart raced with a mix of fear and anticipation. What if it's an intruder? Her mother hissed, worry lodging into her voice. Then we call for help, Ellie replied, surprising herself with her own bravery. They crept forward, each footstep barely a whisper on the old wood. The dim light exposed shadows that danced on the walls, playing tricks on Ellie's mind. What had she gotten them into? Just as they reached the threshold to the kitchen, where the sounds had originated, another crash sent them jolting back. Ellie nearly stumbled, and the stranger clutched her arm tightly. We have to go back, she pleaded, her voice cracking, but Ellie found herself digging deep, determined. No, we need to see if someone needs our help. We can't let fear control us. Her mother hesitated, then squeezed her hand in silent agreement, the tension stretching like a tightrope. As they pushed through the doorway, the sight that met them took Ellie's breath away. The kitchen table lay overturned, chairs scattered like fallen soldiers. And in the corner, an unexpected figure stood, breathless and wild, a face haunted by panic, but unmistakably familiar. Mom. Ellie's voice broke the silence like glass shattering. The woman in the doorway turned, her eyes wide as recognition flooded her features. Ellie, thank God you're here. Ellie's heartbeat quickened. Questions spun in her mind like a whirlwind. What was her mother doing here? What happened that brought her back to the chaos? But before she could ask, the urgency of the moment snapped back, thickening the air in a different way. The girl next to Ellie gasped, her face betraying a mixture of recognition and fear. No, it can't be you. Ellie's heart ached at the sudden shift. What had she stumbled into? What connection might unravel beneath this chaotic reunion? Across the dimly lit room, she felt the shadows closing in, and the uncertain thread of their lives began to tauten again. The unknown loomed ahead, and Ellie could sense that whatever happens next would change their lives forever. What secrets lay hidden behind the destruction, and could they face it together? Ellie's eyes darted between her mother and the girl beside her, the words hanging in the air like a dense fog. Unease pulsed through the room, wrapping around them. Her mother took a shaky step forward, reaching out. What are you doing here, Ellie? She asked, her voice straining like an old rubber band stretched too far. I don't know, Ellie exclaimed, frustration bubbling up. I was with my friends, and then we heard something. She glanced at the girl, whose expression was a mix of fear and something deeper, recognition, perhaps. Ellie, this is not a safe place, her mother continued, urgency pouring out of her. You should have stayed upstairs. No, the girl cut in, her voice trembling. Yes, right. I don't know how you're here, but you need to leave now. Ellie scrunched her brows. Leave? Why? What do you know? The stranger hesitated, her gaze flickering to the mess around them. Things are complicated. I thought I could escape it all, but escape what? Ellie's voice shot through the room, demanding clarity. The girl swallowed hard, her eyes pooling with unshed tears. It's in the house with us. Something came with me. It follows me. A breath hitched in her throat, her words trembling. Ellie's heart stuttered as realization dawned. This wasn't just about a crash or a broken table, this was about something darker. The shadows around them felt alive now, breathing and waiting in the corners of the room. Mom, we can't just hide. She's scared. We should help her. Ellie's plea was both firm and desperate. I don't trust this, Ellie, her mother replied, her voice low, a barrier of protectiveness forming again. But the girl stepped closer to Ellie, her eyes searching, pleading. Please, you have to believe me. Whatever is here, it doesn't want you to stay. The air seemed to pulse with electricity, and Ellie felt an instinctual tug to trust the girl. We can't leave her, she whispered to her mother, not when she needs us. Ellie, her mother warned, a tremor in her voice, we don't know what we're dealing with. But before they could decide, a loud thump echoed from the hallway, freezing them in place. Ellie's heart raced as the noise seemed too close, too intent. Go. The girl cried, her voice fierce now. You have to get out of here. No. We can't leave you. Ellie shouted. The words flew out faster than her mind could think. Trust me. I'll hold it off, just run. The girl's determination struck Ellie like a bolt of lightning. Without waiting for another moment's hesitation, Ellie grasped her mother's arm and pulled her back into the hallway. We can't let her face this alone. Her mother's grip was tense, but she followed, confusion and dread swirling in her eyes. What are you doing? She whispered harshly. We can't abandon her. Ellie insisted. As they dashed through the doorway leading to the living room, there was a sudden cacophony of crashing and scraping, as if the house itself raged against their attempt to leave. Ellie, this isn't a game. We need to go, her mom urged, desperation threading through each syllable as they reached the front door. Mom, look. Ellie pointed to the shadows swirling behind them, coiling like serpents ready to strike. If we don't move now, it will take all of us. The girl's voice called from the kitchen, her words laced with urgency. Fear mingled with determination, and Ellie could feel time slipping away. She had never felt so connected to a complete stranger. We have to go back for her, Mom. Just then, a shadow crawled into view, a dark form flitting just past the kitchen doorway, and a chill seeped into Ellie's bones. Suddenly, they were all faced with a choice: to stand and confront the unknown or run, abandoning the girl who had become a lifeline in a sea of terror. Was there enough strength among them to face what lurked, or would they lose everything? With her heart pounding ferociously, Ellie took a breath. The moment felt heavy, a fragile precipice they teetered upon. What would they do next? Would trusting the girl seal their fate, or would it be their way out? Ellie's heart raced as they paused in the doorway, the weight of uncertainty tangling with the fear that filled the room. The shadows pulsed and shifted like a living entity, and Ellie felt rooted to the spot, as if trapped in quicksand. Mom, she cried, glancing urgently at her mother, whose expression mirrored her own dread. We can't leave her. She needs us. Ellie, this is insane. Her mother shot back, fear lacing her voice. We don't even know what that thing is. We want to find out if we run. Ellie's voice rang with determination. She knew their choice held the power to change everything. Trust was a fragile thing, easily broken, but love, the kind she felt for this girl, demanded a leap of faith. We can't just abandon her. The girl lingered in the kitchen, her wide eyes searching for something: assurance, courage, perhaps a flicker of hope. They locked gazes, and in that moment, Ellie felt an invisible thread pulling them together across the dark void of fear. Ellie, her mother hissed, but just then, the shadows flickered, coiling closer. They could hear the scraping sound now, an otherworldly presence drawing near like an echo of despair. We can do this, Ellie shouted, shoving the door open wider. You're not alone. We'll get through this together. I promise. The girl nodded, a spark of raw familiarity brightening her expression. But if we want to survive, we must confront it. I can help you if you let me. Heart pounding, Ellie stepped back, eyes darting between her mother and the shadows creeping forward. We need a plan. Refusing to back down, Ellie felt a surge of bravery. What if we create a distraction? Something to give us enough time, enough space to get away? If this thing is what I think it is, distraction alone isn't enough, the girl replied, voice steeped in urgency. You have to understand, if it wants you to leave, it's for a reason. It doesn't just want to scare you. Ellie's pulse raced as she began to comprehend the gravity of their situation. Time was slipping away, and they needed to act fast. Then we face it, she decided, her voice a resolute whisper. Together, as a team. Her mother hesitated, eyes narrowing. But there was a flicker of respect there too. You really think we can? Ellie nodded. I want to let it win. We'll overcome this together. With a shared look of understanding, they stepped together into the darkness of their fears, the girl joining them. Each footfall felt like a heartbeat, a promise that they would not face this alone. Ellie could feel the fear and the weight of judgment dissipating into the air. Then suddenly, the kitchen erupted with movement, furniture flying and shadows swelling. Ellie lunged with her mother and the girl, their hands grasping tightly. A sense of togetherness filled the space around them, warming, pushing back the icy dread in a surge of solidarity. Now, Ellie shouted, the three of them moving as one. They charged forward, united against an unseen force. The room pulsed with energy, surrounded by chaos both thrilling and frightening. Together, they combated the shadows, fighting not just for the girl, but for Ellie's newfound strength, her family, the home they were building. Hold on to each other, Ellie yelled, their grip tightening like an unbreakable chain. The confrontation felt like a tidal wave, each pulse of energy resonating with their fears, but also with their hope. Step by step, they pushed back against the darkness that had ensnared them for too long. With one final surge, Ellie felt an explosion of energy surge through her and her companions. The kitchen erupted into light, overwhelming the darkness. The shadows howled in protest, scrambling back into the corners of the house. As the light flooded back in, Ellie stood breathless, heart racing in the aftermath. They looked at each other, all washing over them. They hadn't just faced their fears together, they had conquered them. We did it, the girl exclaimed, relief washing over her face as tears spilled down her cheeks. Ellie's mother nodded, her expression softening, pride gleaming in her eyes. Yes, we did. In that moment, Ellie felt something shift within her: hope, love, and a fierce sense of belonging. The connection forged in darkness had illuminated a path forward. We need to talk, she finally said, reaching for her mother's hand. They stood united, ready to face each other with open hearts and honesty. No more judgments, no more walls. It was time to embrace the truth, their truths. As they stepped together into that light, uncertainty still lingered, but beneath it was a vibrant thread of connection. They were not just a mother and daughter, but a family. And that bond would see them through anything. This was their moment to write a new story, a story of resilience and love that knew no bounds. Now it's time for you to take action. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need a boost of inspiration. This is the moment to show your support. True fans know how important it is. Don't wait not even one more second to share.